Benchmark, the voice of business. Presented by LMD.
On this edition of Benchmark, we start the program with the World Bank Country Director for Sri Lanka and the Maldives, Diariétou Gaye, who gives us her assessment of Sri Lanka's economy. Then, Nielsen Lanka's Managing Director Shaheen Kader analyzes the latest BCI data, the unique index that measures biz confidence, stalls in the face of conflicting views on how Sri Lanka is faring these days. And we wrap up this edition with LMD columnist Samantha Amarasinghe, who discusses the deepening global economic slowdown and its impact on Sri Lanka. That's the lineup for Benchmark. Welcome to Benchmark. The World Bank has a number of active projects here in Sri Lanka, including the Metro Colombo Urban Development Project, the Sri Lanka Development Project, and the post-conflict resettlement work that they are doing in the north and east. Last month, the World Bank pledged $100 million to transform the school education system as a pathway to Sri Lanka becoming a knowledge hub. Today in the spotlight is the recently appointed Country Director of the World Bank, Diariétou Gaye, and she discusses some issues that we need to talk to the World Bank about. What are your first impressions of Sri Lanka?
You know, when you say first impression, I can look at it two ways. One is you get in the airport and what do you see? And second is you get to the office, what do you see? Because that's really what my first impressions are. And third, you get to the government first discussion, what do you see? I think I was quite impressed on the three fronts. First, you know, the way people greet you when you get in, the nature of the conversation I have with my staff, and the openness in those conversations. And really the fact that, you know, when I was coming, I was told, you know, this is a country that is coming out of conflict, the relationships are maybe difficult, you need to be careful. I didn't see any of that, so I didn't need to be very careful. I was the natural me, and it seemed to be working.
So what are your expectations, your objectives vis-a-vis your tenure here?
I'm coming in a completely different time from my predecessor. You know, she was here at the time the country was at war. She was here, you know, at the end of the war, where really the issues were how do we help this government quickly in terms of resettlement on those issues. Today we are in a position where we can step back and start thinking long term. I'm not saying that everything is perfect, but at least we can start thinking about what would be the future of this country. And the World Bank has this comparative advantage that we work in the entire world. So we can bring knowledge from other countries' experience. And we can bring also resources so that the government can implement the program that they have.
At the annual general meeting of the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, you emphasized the importance of raising the country's investments in proportion to its output or GDP. Can you just elaborate a little bit on what you exactly meant and also outline how we are going to do this?
I think I said that, but it's also something that is being said by the government. If you look at the Mahinda Chintan vision for the future, they clearly look at investment as one of the main factor for them to achieve the 8% growth or plus that they need for this country to continue to become a middle income country. For that to happen, many things needs to take place. And one of the most important issue is really around the environment for private sector. You know, you want to increase investment, and I think the vision makes a lot of sense in that way. But how do you do that? And I think that's where the challenge is. How do you move from a 25% investment to the 33% that the government is envisaging? And this is one of the things we would like to help them with.
So at present, Sri Lanka's private sector investments are around 22% of GDP, while the government adds about 5%. Is it fair to expect the private sector to shoulder everything?
I don't think private sector would come to invest and look at investment as a burden. Private investors come to make money. So if you want them to come, the only thing you need to do is to put them in an environment where they have the incentive to come and invest. And that is not about having one-on-one deals or giving some specific advantage to one. It's really to create a whole framework that is simple, transparent, and I'm talking about taxation, I'm talking about all the support that you provide for private investors to come. And there is nothing to invent. I mean, we have seen that in other countries. And the advantage that Sri Lanka has today is that they don't have to reinvent the wheel. They can learn from what happened in other countries that were able to attract private investors.
Sri Lankans have for long lacked the savings habit. Now, in this scenario, how can the government actually generate additional savings to boost the state revenue?
That's a very good point. As you know, the government is today facing some strain, some tension on the financial part. You know, the fiscal space is very limited for them to be able to do all the things that they want to do. Debt is here, 80% of GDP. Some expenditures are here, and revenues are not coming. One of the things that is quite impressive is that in this country, tax revenue is only 16% of GDP. It's by far too low. The average that you can see in other countries around 30%. So the revenues are not being collected. How do you want an expenditure as what they are and growing? So your fiscal space is really limited. And the government needs to work on that. And that has to do with expenditure. On the expenditure side, looking at some of the losses that we see in state-owned enterprises cost a lot. So improving the efficiencies of those. When you look at better managing the debt, and on that side they've been doing very well. I mean, it was more than 100% before, it's 80% today. And on the revenue side, I mean, simplifying the tax system because it's way too complicated, and being able to lower the tax so that everybody are able to pay. I mean, these are things that you see in many other countries. Again, these are the things that we could offer to the government.
So besides what you already said, are there any examples that we can take from other countries to inculcate the savings habit?
In terms of countries that have worked on cutting expenditure or increasing revenue, I think the East Asian countries are a very good example, almost all of them. They have done quite a big effort in putting together a structure of their economy that works. And I think Sri Lanka needs to start comparing itself to those countries.
Ms. Gaye, in brief, can you just give us a little bit of a snapshot of the important projects that the World Bank is doing here in Sri Lanka at the moment?
We have about a portfolio that is about 1.3 billion currently, of 14 projects. Of those 14 projects, I would say, if I put them in category, we have a group of projects that addressed livelihood issue with the NELSIP Reawakening Project that really do improving livelihood and building capacity for the NELSIP at the local government level. And these are focused mostly in the north and the east. We have also a series of projects ongoing on infrastructure. We had quite a large portfolio in the road sector. We are also very active in health and education. We have, yesterday I launched the education project, about 100 million. We did the Metro Colombo Urban Development Project also, which was launched last week, 213 million. So what you will see is that as we move forward in our engagement with Sri Lanka, we'll come with a much lower number of operations, but much bigger, so that they are significant on the ground.
So whether it's the Metro Colombo Urban Development Project, the East Sri Lanka Development Project, or transforming the school education system, as the case may be, what I see is that the World Bank is actually involved primarily in infrastructure development with some socio-economic benefits. Is this how the World Bank's mandate works, or is it just simply for Sri Lanka, or is it across the board?
That's not how the World Bank works. I think our greatest advantage is on knowledge work. So as we do those operations, one of the things that we do, and which we will be talking more and more and more, is to advise government on some of the policies and strategy that they are putting forward. And I'm thinking of things like growth, for example. If we say we want to grow at 8% and this is the kind of investment that we need to put in place, we should be in a position to help the government on those aspects. The vision is there, but the road to get to achieve this vision is where we want to help. So it's not infrastructure and project is not the core of our mandate. Our mandate is really around bringing more knowledge.
We've been chatting on Spotlight with the World Bank's country director, Diariétou Gaye, on the country's investment and savings milieux, as well as the projects that the World Bank is involved in here in Sri Lanka. On the other side, Ms. Gaye expands on the economy, on sustainability and poverty and malnutrition.